Will the public ever see the affidavit that led to the FBI search of former President Trump's estate? A federal judge in Florida plans to hold a hearing on Thursday. Trump is asking for it to be released, while the Justice Department wants it to remain sealed. It falls on the federal magistrate judge who approved the Mar-a-Lago search warrant to make the decision. He already unsealed the warrant and property receipt last Friday, but he's kept other materials shielded, including the affidavit. The Justice Department is opposed to releasing the affidavit in spite of calls from various lawmakers and Trump himself to release it. The department also admitted that the FBI agents took Trump's passports at the raid. According to an email made public by Trump's spokesperson, they were ready for pickup on Monday afternoon. And GOP lawmakers are still expressing concerns over the raid of former President Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago. In a letter to White House officials, Congressman Jim Jordan called the raid a weaponization of law enforcement resources. He's requesting access to all communications related to the search warrant on President Trump's residence. Congressman Mike Turner, the lead Republican on the House Intelligence Committee, told CNN that GOP members are concerned that the raid was unjustified. Congressman Turner says that Congress now wants to know what the FBI thought they would find in the boxes that they confiscated from Mar-a-Lago. He also wants to know what they actually did find. He added that Congress's Intelligence Committee already has the authority to see anything that could be in the boxes, even if it rises to the level of a national security threat. The FBI arrested former Congressman Terrence John Cox. He was charged with multiple fraud schemes and campaign contribution fraud. T.J. Cox, a Democrat, was charged with 15 counts of wire fraud, 11 counts of money laundering, 1 count of financial institution fraud, and 1 count of campaign contribution fraud. Cox was elected to the House of Representatives in 2018. He served as representative for California's 21st congressional district. According to the Justice Department, if convicted, Cox faces up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine for wire fraud and money laundering. He faces up to 30 years in prison and a $1 million fine for financial institution fraud and wire fraud affecting a financial institution. The U.S. responds to Beijing's latest moves against Taiwan. China is sanctioning Taiwanese officials in resuming military drills around the democratically ruled island. NTD's Iris Tao has more.
Amid rising tensions, China is sanctioning 7 Taiwanese officials, including the island's representative to the U.S., Xiaobi Kim. Beijing now bars them from traveling to or making money in mainland China, while accusing them of supporting Taiwan independence. That's despite the Taiwanese representative recently reiterating,
"We will not escalate, we will not provoke. We are committed to maintaining the status quo."
Beijing sanctions also come as it conducts fresh military drills around Taiwan. That's over recent visits by U.S. lawmakers to the self-ruled island, which China has vowed to annex by force if necessary. Meanwhile, the U.S. has called China's drills
provocative and totally unnecessary.
And while the sanctions have little practical effect, as senior Taiwanese officials do not visit mainland China, Taiwan's foreign ministry says it shows how Beijing is trying to formulate a crisis.
It again proves that China is overreacting and trying to create a crisis with excuses. We will not acknowledge threats and intimidation by an authoritarian regime.
And the U.S. also accuses Beijing of overreacting.
It is not the United States. It is not Taiwan. It is the PRC that is challenging the status quo.
Meanwhile, reports cite Taiwanese officials as saying that a third U.S. congressional delegation will visit the island by the end of August. Earlier this month, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi led a delegation there, and Senator Ed Markey led a second one this week. Iris Tao, NTD News.
Customs and Border Protection reported nearly 200,000 encounters with illegal immigrants at the southern border in July. That is down by roughly 3.8% from June. The nearly 200,000 illegal immigrants include those from Central America, South America, Haiti, and Cuba. The steady influx of illegal aliens is due to changes in migration trends. The majority of illegal aliens crossing the U.S.-Mexico border are from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, but their numbers have been dropping. Meanwhile, migration from other nations in the Western Hemisphere is growing. Under Title 42, only about half of the 134,000 single adult illegal immigrants could be expelled in July. This is because Mexico refused to take all of them. Illegal border crosser encounters fell by over 3% in the month of July. However, undetected illegal crossings might be a contributing factor. For a glimpse into the true situation at the southern border, I spoke with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Attorney General, right now, obviously, the border crisis is it's taking on a national interest, if you will. What would you say is the single biggest issue when it comes to the southern border?
I think it really boils down to one thing, and you can see it just by the numbers and by how two different administrations handle it. The Trump administration looked at federal law and followed it, and basically started shutting the border down and making this a place that was more safe. The Biden administration openly defied federal law and invited the cartels to human traffic as many people as they could and bring drugs across the border. They never said it specifically, but they said that they wouldn't deport anybody on day one. And so that sent the signal to the cartels, hey, we're in partnership with you. You don't have to run anymore. Come bring your people to the Border Patrol. Don't run from us, and we will take the handoff and we'll get you the rest of the way. And that's the difference. One president follows federal law, follows the Constitution. Another disdains federal law and disdains the Constitution.
Now, as Attorney General of Texas, nobody knows better than you the effects that this is having on Texans. If you could kind of tell us what effects the border is having on your people.
Yeah, so I was talking to some ranchers. I was down on the border yesterday. The day before, I was talking to some ranchers, and they talked about how these people come across with vehicles and set their property on fire and burn up all their property. They don't feel safe going out on their own property. They don't want their kids down there. Some people have even moved out, and they can't sell their property because nobody wants it, because there's so much risk at being along the border. So it's for those living on the border, I mean, it's an everyday issue of whether they want to continue to risk their lives. I think the thing that I deal with that is the most painful is knowing children that have died of fentanyl overdoses, or young adults who have died of fentanyl overdoses who had no idea that they were taking fentanyl. And the reality is, because the Biden administration has turned Border Patrol into a logistics organization transporting illegal immigrants around the country, as opposed to a border security unit, now drugs and overdoses are on the increase across the nation, and a lot of really young children and kids are dying. And seeing the parents and knowing some of these children, I mean, it's hard to accept.
Now, Texas officials and Arizona officials, governors, have been busing the illegal aliens to other cities. Specifically, I want to ask you about Washington, D.C., and the reaction from the mayor there, who basically said that there's a crisis in her city because of this. What do you make of her words?
I actually am glad she said it. She's acknowledging something that we've known for a long time. She's finally experiencing just a little tiny bit of what Texas has had to experience, or Arizona, or any of the border states. I think I calculated with 4,000 illegal immigrants that she's dealing with, that's about 0.1% of all the illegal immigrants that have come across since Biden started. 0.1%, and she's feeling the impact. Can you imagine what Texas is feeling when we got about, we have that many almost every day, and we're dealing with the consequences? And so the fact that it is so impacting her that she's speaking out against really her own president, it tells you a lot about where we're really at.
Now, she also says that the vast majority of these folks, illegal aliens, are asylum seekers. There's no better person to ask than the Attorney General of Texas. Is this the case, or is it an attempt to garner sympathy for these people?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the actual numbers are, but yeah, there are a lot of asylum seekers. But what you have to know about that is that's a loophole. If you'll remember, under the Trump administration, they enforce federal law which says that you have to remain in your country of origin or be detained until your hearing. So everybody knows, and the lawyers, the immigration lawyers tell everybody, and the cartels tell everybody, just turn yourself in, claim asylum, they won't hold you anymore. The Biden administration will take you to a state that they choose for you, usually a Republican state. And so, yeah, she might be right. A lot of them are asylum seekers, but they're not. Only a low percentage of them actually are asylum people. They're just using the loophole, and the Biden administration has basically encouraged the loophole and signaled to the cartels, just have these people claim asylum. We'll take them. We'll take them all. Bring as many people here as possible. Millions, by the millions, 2 million, 3 million. Bring as many as possible. Doesn't matter what their background on, criminal, doesn't matter. We want them. Bring them to the United States.
Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you.
Thank you.